China's one-child policy is regarded as the biggest social experiment in the human history. I'm honored to be a subject in this experiment. I am one of the 150 million only children in my generation. In 2015, when I first came to the United States for business school, China dropped the one-child policy after 35 years. Many GSB classmates showed great empathy to me, saying, "Yiran, I'm so happy for you that China eventually dropped this evil policy. How could the Chinese government deny human rights like that? It must be really hard for you growing up without siblings. I cannot imagine that people could not make their own choices about how many kids to have." I really appreciated their compassion, but deep inside, I feel conflicted. Then some other classmates further asked, "How do you view the one-child policy? Was it good or bad?" My response, "I don't know." Since then, I have tried to learn more in hopes of arriving at a better answer. Today, let me start with my own story as the only child. Try to imagine that you are a 5-year-old only child living in China, like I was. I have to tell you that you have to spend some time alone, talking to yourself, playing by yourself, sometimes even hugging yourself, because you have to play 2 roles in the same time, princess and prince. But trust me, life was not that bad. I had a great time. I had great companionship with my cousins and neighborhood kids. And I probably have to admit that I cannot understand the whole concept of siblings because all my peers are only children as well. So the idea of having a sibling never crossed my mind. At home, at school, we were told that the one-child policy was fundamentally important to China to keep the population a great size and to ensure the quality of life. At home, my mom, who has 3 other siblings, told me a story about back in 1960s, 4 of them had to split 1 loaf of bread for a meal, and all her clothes are passed down from her 2 elderly sisters. I also heard a story from people of my own age. In rural part of China, where the one-child policy had not been enforced, girls had to give away opportunities for education for the boys at home. So with all these stories in mind, I truly believed that the one-child policy was the right way to go, for me, for my family, as well as for my country. Until one day in 2013, I was still working in China as a sales manager, riding a bullet train from Beijing to Shanghai. I got a long message from my mom, which was very unusual. She wrote that she had been diagnosed with a heart disease called HDD, and she needed open chest surgery as soon as possible. She had hesitated to tell me because my working schedule was very full. But she eventually decided to let me know because the risk of that surgery is super high. So at that moment, actually I was on a business trip with several colleagues and also my client sitting right in front of me. But I burst into tears. I was terrified by the thought what could happen to my mom. I also feel troubled. How could my mom hesitate to tell me I was her only child? I should be the person to keep company with her, take care of her, and sign on the consent form for the surgery. But at that moment, she was still thinking about disturbing my work. This is ridiculous. So I look outside of the train window, feel terrified, helpless, and as well as obligated. And for the very first time, I wished I could have a sibling to share this fear and overcome the hardship together. So a few months later, I get back to my hometown. I was very happy to spend more time with my mom and family members. But in the meantime, I was also struggled with handling both her work, both her illness and my work. So, but I'm very lucky because the surgery was very successful and my mom recovered. However, I kept thinking about this idea of having a sibling. How could my life be different if I was not the only child? Recently, I sent this question to over 100 only child friends in China. Here are some responses that are really interesting I want to share with you. If I were not the only child, I wouldn't be forced to go on so many blind dates set up by my parents. However, my parents wouldn't be able to pay for the down payments for a new apartment for me, which is regarded as a must to get married in China. Here is one struck me most. I might not be as successful as I am because I couldn't monopolize all the attention and resources from my parents. But I would be more free, living abroad, marrying to my same-sex partner, instead of living the life to meet my parents' expectations. My friends are as conflicted as I am. The good is inseparable from the bad. Scholars have examined the one-child policy from many different perspectives, criticizing the policy for violating human rights or creating big social issues such as Little Emperor syndrome, aka China's spoiled brats. As a little emperor myself, I'm very grateful for all the privileges I've received as an only child, especially for the improved opportunities for women. However, I have to admit that the excessive love and attention also creates larger pressure. After the termination of the one-child policy, I had a conversation with my mom. How many kids do you think I should have? I asked. She urged me to have at least 2 in light of all the downside of being the only child. But I'm not sure. Since I can imagine that my future husband and I have to support 4 elderly parents, adding 2 or more kids, that's crazy. And especially given the social expectation for taking care of parents is way much higher in Chinese culture. And what stings me more is the thought that if something bad falls on me, what could happen to my mom? I cannot imagine what my mom would go through if she lost her only child. My stepfather is a sociologist specializing in the study of families who lost their only child. He told me that now there are more than 1 million such families in China. These parents usually are too old to give another birth to the baby, so they lost their only hope. Many of them suffer from tremendous emotional trauma and irrecoverable hardship in terms of finance and also life. So I think this helps me to explain part of my survey, why my generation carries a heavier emotional burden and is less willing to take risks. Was the one-child policy good or bad? To be honest, I still don't have the answer. But here is the lesson I want to share with you. When you're from the outside, it seems easy to evaluate a government policy or a business decision that had impact on other people. Once you move to the inside, it's not just like snap your finger and get the answer to that question. So I would urge you and myself, think about the big choices and decisions on an individual level. Consider life stories. And when you have the power to make a decision for a large group of people, no matter you're a political leader or a business leader, try to take on the view from the inside. Do not let the view from the outside dominate your choice. And this is my lesson from the one-child policy. Thank you.